Hi Aquarius, and welcome to your January 2024 horoscope. You made it. It's a new year. I hope you're excited for this year because Pluto is entering your sign. It's going to be a big one, and you're going to see a lot of transformation. Before we get into this Plutonian transit, and believe me, we'll take our time to do so, I also wanted to highlight another important aspect of this month. And this is the sextile between Saturn and Jupiter. Saturn is in a water sign and Jupiter is in an earth sign. And because of this, I think that January for all the signs will be quite a practical month where we're going to focus quite a lot on our physical needs, taking care of our body, but as well our emotional needs, taking care of our mind and emotions. On January 1st, we start off the month with Venus in your 11th house, squaring Saturn in your 2nd house. You are really enjoying right now expanding your network, getting lots of new friends, but it's a little bit difficult to do so because you don't feel as confident as you usually do. You're finding it a bit difficult to express yourself in a way that really shows your uniqueness. I want to let you know that, of course, this will get easier as the month goes on. On the 4th, Mars will leave your 11th house and enter Capricorn, which is your 12th house. So because you are finding it a little bit more difficult to express yourself, you might find, especially now that Mars is entering your 12th house, that you are drawing within and you're on a mission. You're on a mission to look within your mind, to look at the brain between your 2 ears and figure out where this is coming from. What happened, whether now, whether from your childhood, that's all of a sudden making it super hard to really step into your own self-confidence. And this 12th house is going to also be the major place for the new moon. The new moon is happening on January 11th. Mars is in your 12th house, the moon and the sun is in your 12th house, and so is Pluto. You have had Pluto in your 12th house for 20 years. I believe that you are super excited for it to finally leave so that you can step out into the world and really show all the power that you have developed within you, but now you're ready to step out and share it with others. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's first talk about the new moon in your 12th house. This new moon in your 12th house is sort of a one final goodbye to Pluto in Capricorn. So you might be facing one final challenge, one final sweet victory with what you've been learning the last 20 years. What you've learned the last 20 years is about the power of your mind and the fact that reality is actually all a thing made up in our head. And this has given you a huge power and has enabled you to really create your own reality. And that's why you're probably super excited to step into Pluto in Aquarius, because you can share that with the world finally and apply it to the practical world. There's also another interesting aspect during this new moon, which is the aspect between Mars, Saturn, and Jupiter. And Saturn and Jupiter bring in your 2nd and 4th house into this conversation. So I can imagine during this new moon that there are some things happening with your family that are really, for a final time, helping you realize the power of your mind and helping you really learn some of the final lessons about how we create our own reality in between our own 2 years. On January 14th, Venus sextiles the South Node in your 9th house. You have had the South Node in your 9th house since November of 2023, and you are learning to let go of the belief systems that you're holding on to just because you're afraid of what people will think of you. Is probably something that you believe, some probably places you're traveling to, books you're reading that you actually don't care about, that you're only doing those things because of what others will think of you, or what others will think of you when you don't do them. And because Venus is in a nice aspect with the South Node during this time, you might be finding it especially easy to step away from those things because you are finding really more of your tribe and your group of people that are making you feel finally accepted and loved for your own unique hobbies and your own unique belief systems. Venus continues to travel through your 11th house, and on the 19th of January, it squares Neptune in your 2nd house. Because of the wonderful things that happen on the 14th, finally feeling like you can drop belief systems that are actually others and not your own, you might be getting a boost in your self-confidence. But I want you to know that because this is a difficult aspect, that you shouldn't get too carried away with yourself too soon. Self-confidence is something that can take a while to really build up and really believe in ourselves so that it feels quite strong and it's built on a good foundation. So I would say don't do anything too risky during this time, because things might seem better than they actually are, more enticing than they actually are. If you want to take an action, I recommend waiting for a bit, seeing if a couple of days later it still feels right. And if it does, then you can go ahead and do it. And finally, we get to the big event. On January 20th, we have Pluto and the Sun conjunct in Capricorn, in the final degree of Capricorn. A couple of hours later, the Sun enters Aquarius, or your 1st house. And on the 21st, Pluto follows suit and also enters your 1st house. Let's start off with the Sun. With the Sun entering your 1st house, you might feel a certain lightness emanating from you from the 20th onwards. There seems to be a light at the end of the tunnel, a light after all of the inner work you've done that feels like, wow, I'm getting somewhere. I'm ready to step out into the real world and actually apply all of the things that I've been learning. But this is not just a regular getting out into the world, because it's happening right there with Pluto. Pluto is entering your 1st house, and it will stay there for 20 years. Look back to what happened between March and June of 2023 when Pluto was in Aquarius, and this might give you a foreshadowing as to what you can expect for the next 20 years. You have done the inner work. You have cleaned up all the little corners of your mind, and now it's time to apply it. Now it's time to step out into the world and lead people, to become a leader and to influence others with your own unique self. Not following trends, not doing things because we're afraid of what people will think of us. And this is what the rest of the world needs as well. Don't be afraid of your power during this time. You might find it quite intense to be able to influence so many people, but just think of the good that you can do into the world if you apply that power in a nice way. On January 23rd, Venus enters your 12th house. And it's actually a really beautiful shift because you've had a lot of stuff happening in your 12th house. You've been cleaning up your inner mind. But now that Venus is entering in it, it seems as if now you're really enjoying it. Now you're really having fun doing the inner work. And it feels like a hobby for you. It feels like, you know, how people go out to the pub to have a fun time. Now you go home, you meditate, you journal, you do your exercises, and that lights you up with joy. On January 25th, we have a full moon in Aquarius in your 1st house. Pluto is still quite close to the sun during this full moon, so I would still consider it quite a Plutonian full moon. The sextile between Saturn and Jupiter is still very much happening during this full moon, so it brings into the conversation your second and your fourth house again. There are some wonderful things happening at home. You are maybe moving, getting a new house. Perhaps there's some good news coming from your own family. And this good news is making it easier for you to celebrate and express yourself in your own unique way. A lot of the times when those around us are in a good mood, they can be a little bit less judging and a little bit more accepting and loving. So use this nice energy to help you practice expressing yourself and leading others around you. It's much easier to lead a group that's in a good mood than a group that's in a bad mood, for example. January 28th is also quite an interesting day because we have a couple of things happening on that day. Uranus goes direct, Mars squares the nodes, and we also have an aspect that happened earlier in the month with Mars, Saturn, and Jupiter. But this time it's happening with Venus, Saturn, and Jupiter. So take a notice at what happened on January 11th, because this day might be a repetition of it, but it might be repeated in a bit of an easier and more easygoing way. Because Mars is squaring the nodes, on this day, you really have to step into your courage. You have to be a true warrior and do the scary things. No matter how scary they feel, what's happening on this day is really for the higher evolution of you. It's really going to help you become an even better person. So I really challenge you on this day to do the difficult thing. And on January 30th, we close off the month with Mars trining Uranus in your fourth house. You have been expressing yourself, being courageous, and it feels like on this day you're finally being recognized for being uniquely yourself, being uniquely weird and cool. And this is really making it easy for you to continue doing the inner work and to continue stepping into your courage. So overall, Aquarius, wow, have you been doing the inner work? Have you been working hard on cleaning out all of the corners of your mind? I am so excited for you to start stepping into the world and leading and showing us all of the realizations that you've had for the last 20 years. We're all really excited by it. I hope you enjoy January, take the power, use it to influence people, to make the world a better place. Make sure you subscribe so that you can catch the February horoscope. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again soon.